Hi, I'm Skinny Cheeks. In this video, I'm going to cover the changes to scribing coming for update 43. Some of this is coming from the patch notes, but when I was digging in on the PTS, I noticed quite a few extras that were not mentioned, so I'll cover all of that here today. And if you haven't already seen it, I do have a video covering a lot of the new stuff we're getting with update 43. I'll have that linked down below. I also did a thorough patch note review over on Twitch when those went live, so I'll link that below as well if you want to check it out. It was close to 4 hours of patch notes though, so here for YouTube, I'll be breaking down the changes in more bite-sized chunks. So we'll start with the scribing update. They went through and pretty much buffed the damage, healing, and damage shield size on every skill in scribing. The focuses were buffed by 3.3% and the signatures by 6.6%. And the reason they did this was because these skills have no rank ups or morphs like all of our other skills in the game do. So originally these were treated as rank 1 unmorphed skills in terms of the power that was given to them. So with this change, they're now treated like skills that are fully leveled up. And this is a really welcome change as most of the skills were indeed underperforming. So this should make these abilities mostly on par with other similar abilities in the game now. So I went through and I updated my Grimoire spreadsheet already. I plugged in all the new values. If you want to see how those look, definitely creates a few new interesting choices to revisit and test out. I also plugged in the new values in my individual class spreadsheets, so you can check those out too if you want to see how some of these might fit into your setup. Definitely recommend joining the Discord server to stay up to date on all this. I have a section in there called charts and calcs that I keep up to date with whatever I'm currently working on. They also went through and adjusted the sustain values for a lot of these skills. Most of these were slightly buffed. However, the one for Wield Soul was nerfed from 1000 of each resource down to only 600. This is probably fair as this one was hands down the best for resource return out of all of the scribing skills. And I think still is even after being nerfed and the others being buffed. So that kind of says something about how out of line it was before. I messed around with it some on the PTS and the Infinite Archive, and it still felt pretty solid, though the Archive does some funky stuff with sustain, so it's hard to tell for sure. And along with those sustain buffs, they also buffed the sustain on the Nightblade and Warden class mastery signatures. Not really enough to make those that interesting to me, I don't think. Definitely still hoping for some more to be added in the future. Then for Elemental Explosion, they nerfed the knockback to 10 meters down from 12 meters, and then they actually buffed the base status effect chance on this skill to 10% rather than the default 5% that a direct damage AoE ability would normally have. So depending on your setup, this could be a rather large increase to the chance to proc this. I really like the idea. However, I do think it's worth mentioning if you are using the Assassin's Misery signature. This one already gives you guaranteed burning, chilled, and concussed, so only the magic version of this skill would benefit from this buff if you are using that signature, since all the other focus options are already at 100% chance. They also went through and adjusted many of the affix timers to follow a more standardized rule. Major buffs will last for 10 seconds and minor buffs will last for 20 seconds. It's not the end of the world, but I'm really not a fan of these overly cookie cutter style changes where they put everything into neat little boxes. It just doesn't realistically line up with the values on these different buffs. And it also now makes them not line up with some of their damage over time components that you can put onto the skills. And they even commented on that saying, "We understand this can lead to situations where your signature and affix durations may misalign and create situations where you must weigh when you should recast the ability, but we believe this to be an important and conscious decision that should be pondered when you're crafting your ability." And I gotta say, I couldn't agree less with this comment here. It just feels really crappy to have a 20-second dot that you need to cast every 10 seconds if you want to keep up the buff on it. That isn't really an important and conscious decision. It just feels bad. And it makes the already mediocre dots in the scribing system even worse if you have to overcast them like this. But it is what it is right now. Now they did mention Trample getting the Minor Heroism and Minor Expedition converted over to Major Heroism and Major Expedition. These will each last for 10 seconds. On-demand Major Heroism is actually pretty crazy. And while it is a bit clunky to use with that 1.5 second cast time, it will undoubtedly make its way into some setups now because of that really nice buff. Definitely interested to see what people put together with that. Could definitely see some Necros using Major and Minor Heroism together to get crazy high uptimes on Major Vuln from their Colossus, and maybe something similar with Sorcerers and the Major Berserk from their Atronach. And of course, more Ultimate is always useful for support roles. Is Update 43 going to be the patch where we see the mounts take over? I guess we'll find out. But when I was looking at these new Affix additions, I noticed it wasn't just Major Heroism and Expedition that was added to Trample. They actually added Major Protection as well, which is a pretty nice buff for 10% reduced damage taken. So I started looking through all of the skills, and sure enough, they added a bunch of new affixes that they didn't mention in the patch notes. So first off, Major Sorcery and Brutality, along with Major Savagery and Prophecy. These give us our major weapon and spell damage and crit chance buffs. These are now on every single Scribing skill. Now, they only last for 10 seconds, which is kind of disappointing, but there's a lot more flexibility now in how you can obtain these buffs, since no matter which skill you want to use from Scribing, it has these as an option. I do think it kind of makes the addition to these for Necro feel a tiny bit less exciting, but at least the Necro ones are 20 seconds each, and both are on very useful DPS skills. But I'll discuss Necros more in a separate video. So for now, let's just go through each of the Scribing skills, and I'll show which new affixes were added onto them. Soul Burst, Torchbearer, Contingency, Shield Throw, and Smash. These each got these two buffs we just talked about, the major weapon and spell damage and crit buffs. For Wield Soul, this got Major Maim and Major Savagery and Prophecy added. Trample got Major Brutality and Sorcery, Major Expedition, Major Heroism, and Major Protection. Traveling Knife got Brutality and Sorcery, along with Minor Force. Vault got Brutality and Sorcery, along with Minor Berserk and Minor Intellect and Endurance. Minder's Bond got Minor Evasion, Minor Force, and Minor Vulnerability added. And then finally, Elemental Explosion got Savagery and Prophecy added to it. So quite a lot there that they didn't list in the patch notes, but I think these are really nice additions that are definitely worth being mentioned. We also have 3 skills that did not have the option for frost damage on them before that do now. Wield Soul, Soul Burst. I think this one looks so cool. And then Shield Throw. So if you're really into that frosty playstyle, these 3 are now opened up for you to use as well. I'd love to see them continue to add stuff like this. Not only frost to more of the skills, like Traveling Knife I think would be really cool with it, but also more of the other elements too. I'd love to see more options for poison and disease abilities. But regardless, I really like this direction. I'm really glad that these were added in. There were a few other non-balance related changes to Scribing as well. Scripts acquired from daily quest coffers and world drops will no longer have variable levels or sell values. They'll always be level 1 and always sell to vendors for 999 gold. So this will be nice, especially once you've finished up your scripts. You'll still get some value out of landing a script that you already know. And then if you've done the Dragon's Wing, you have a chance for luminous ink to drop from treasure chests. And if you've done the Griffin's Wing, you have a chance for the ink to drop in heavy sacks. So a couple of additional ink sources there. Plus there was this post from Jess on Reddit in response to a data mine post. And she said, "We are preparing to add luminous ink as a daily login reward, not to the Crown Store, at some point in the future." So there was some speculation about them adding these for sale because they popped up in a data mine, but doesn't look like that's the case. They just might turn up in some login rewards. Next up, one of my favorite new additions for this patch, they're adding a Scribing Altar crafting station that allows you to scribe from your home. This can be purchased for Master Writs, for Alliance points, and for Archival Fortunes. You can also purchase the Scribing Altar for crowns in the Housing Editor purchase tab. So it looks like the current PTS prices are 800 Master Writs, 1 million AP, or 30k Archival Fortunes. They also added Scribing Altars to Cyrodiil base camps and the Imperial City sewers. So just a bit more convenience there if you get queued in, you realize you need to change something up, so no longer will you have to leave and then come back. But that sums up the Scribing changes. Pretty good stuff all around here, I'd say. I do hope that they continue to expand upon the options for the existing skills here, but I like what's going on so far. There is quite a bit left to unpack from the patch notes still, so be on the lookout for videos covering the class changes as well. I want to give a big shout out to my current Patreon supporters and YouTube members. The memberships really help a ton to keep this channel and the website going. Can't thank y'all enough. And a special thanks to Nicholas, Simon, Cougars Bay and the Cougar City Guild, the Order of War Guild, Cantankerous Cat, Shady, Iffy, Blake1816, Mordecai1212, Santanico, Vidridi, Florian, Phoenix, Nalandia, Unemployed, Chryseliana, Cha-Cha, Technical KO, Cap, Danco77, Prawn, and Cladic. Thanks again and see you later. Bye.